Okay, hi. My name is Rannveig Ágústa, and I'm a PhD student at Rannveig Ágústa Guðjónsdóttir. And my supervisors are Jónín Karam and Guðrún Kristinsdóttir. I'll be presenting a paper from my PhD studies. The working title is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Norms and Binaries of Following Discourses in the Icelandic Mass Media. This research is a part of a bigger project, my PhD research, about the experience of fathers that have been violent in an intimate partner relationship. Mapping out the discourses that are dominant in the Icelandic mass media about fathers is a part of gaining a deeper understanding of the discourses and cultural context in which the experience of fathers that have been violent in intimate relationship is constructed. So the PhD project is about fathers that have been violent in intimate partner relationship, and this is an important first step in that mapping out their experience. The data this research draws from, it consists of 245 newspaper articles from the Icelandic mass media in the period of 2008 to 2018. The data was gathered in the fall of 2019 through an account to the Icelandic Media Watch. By typing in different search words and combinations of search words in the search engine at the Media Watch, such as father, fathers, fathering, dad, and etc., I got an extreme magnitude of data that was narrowed down to articles that actually had something to do with fathers or fathering, but did not merely mention that someone was someone's father, or that this person had a father named something. So the selection criteria for the articles became that the article had to at least partly be about fathers or fathering, or a narrative from a person about their own fathers, or from fathers about their children, or experience of being fathers. I used the analyzing program Atlas to gain a better overview of the data and to be able to code them and analyze more systematically. Theory. So the data was analyzed using a critical discourse analysis, which in this case centers on the feminist post-structural foundation of the overall project. In short, that means that there is put an emphasis on examining how language shapes, withholds, and can be a source of power in society, and the impact this can have on forming our identities. Power is then studied from the views, discourses, and even people that become normalized, precisely to be able to uncover which discourses and people are subordinated. This understanding of language and power can be useful when looking into how masculinities and femininities are shaped. Discourses on fathers in the Nordic countries have increasingly been connected to gender equality, and Nordic fathers have consequently become a sort of a symbol for the new, good, and gender equal father. Within the recognizably extensive masculinity studies, there has in recent years been growing a theoretical discussion of discourses and narratives about fatherhood. In Nordic context, the focus has been on identifying discourses on new and involved fathers that represent the gender equal national identity under the implication that they possess a different characteristics than the then old, distant, and sexist or traditional fathers that came before them. Scholars have, however, repeatedly pointed out the multi-layered and intersecting aspects of discourses on fatherhood and argued for a more nuanced understanding of fathers and their identities. So the results are that The dominant discourses about fathers in the Icelandic mass media are presented in a rather black and white manner. I've split them into 3 categories here: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Starting with the good, there is a very heteronormative manifestation of fathers in the media. And I think it's important to shed light on which fathers are presented in the Icelandic mass media, and simultaneously examine which fathers are presented less frequently or not at all. The image of the Nordic good father has been prominent both in theory and media, and it's therefore important to pay attention to the fact that this image mainly seems to include white, straight, able-bodied, cisgendered, and middle-class men. Good fathers are presented in the media as active in their children's upbringing. They take parental leave, do housework, change and mature when they become fathers, are grateful, and describe how becoming a father gave their life purpose and fulfillment. There is a certain tension between the gender equality perspective that are intertwined with the discourse on good fathers and the more traditional discourses on responsible breadwinning fathers, which are still very actual. Discourses in the Icelandic mass media imply that good fathers are fully active in their children's life after a divorce, and discourses on good fathers intertwined with discourses about fathers' rights, which often came up in newspaper articles that covered custody disputes. It became apparent how powerful the discourse on good fathers are in the newspaper articles that revolved around child custody disputes. Those newspaper articles were very prevalent in the Icelandic mass media in the years 2008 to 2018. And there are numerous factors that contribute to that. One is changes in rules and regulations regarding joint custody. Another are laws about parental leave from 2000. And then the ideas and discourses about new, active, and good fathers become a bit more graspable, and there becomes a stronger demand, both culturally and from the fathers themselves. It becomes a bigger part of their identity to take an active and equal part in their child's lives after separation. And it's therefore vital to remember that discourses are never just discourses, but internalized and become a part of our identity. The bad then, so the discourse about fathers in the media was presented in a pairs of opposites. And by looking at these opposites, we get a clear glimpse of which behavior is not socially accepted and get insight into which ideas are dominant regarding good fathers. So fathers in the media that were in interviews and represented in the media, they often use comparison to bad fathers to highlight their identity as good fathers. And bad fathers were portrayed as opposites of good fathers. By examining these opposite pairs within the dominant discourses of fathers in the media, we get a good insight into the power structures and social norms. Citing or referring to their love for their children was a common way for fathers to display their identity as good fathers. I am a father that loves his child more than anything. That's a statement that leaves the reader with the assumption that since he loves his child deeply, he must be a good father. It was also common that the fathers noted that they were not irresponsible addicts or drinkers, stressing that they were most importantly not violent men. And the ugly. Newspaper articles about custody disputes were one way of looking into the monsters in the closet, so to speak. What emerged with the focus of the fathering discourses in the media in a cultural context is that following changing societal attitudes after decades of feminist struggle against gender violence and following a more recent camp as Me Too has been, there becomes less patience in society for men's violence against women and children, and rightfully so. The media data I draw from here presents a very black and white and monstrous picture of men that have been violent. The aim of these news often seems to be to uncover who is the real monster, the violent man or the mother that hinders the communication of fathers and child. And the real victim then, is it the good father deprived of rights or the good mother that protects her child from abusive father? The dominant discourses of fathers in the Icelandic mass media presents fathers that have been violent not only within the opposite pair of good and bad fathers, but entangled in a more effective notion of disgust, which this monster stigma covers rather well. The ugly father then has not only failed to live up to a normative image of the good father, which could consequently place him in the group of bad fathers, he has been violent, which makes him in this notion that the monster in the closet. This is a broad term from Structure. Lessons and limits. By looking at these discourses in the media, it gives us insight into the construction of identities, which ideas are dominant in society. The mass media is a certain mirror for the discourses and views that are dominant in society in general, but they are also shaped by people, and the role of those who make the media does often become invisible in the media discourse analysis. It's interesting to consider the impact that social media has had on the mass media. If the mass media increasingly seeks to invoke strong emotional reactions to get readers, as is done with this citation to the ugly, monstrous, violent father. So if this black and white or with or against manifestation is a part of the need that mass media has for people to click on the article, the discourse is of course only one part of a complex reality which shapes our views, identities, and behavior in interaction with numerous other factors that need to be taken into account. And it's therefore important to examine fathers in a bigger context. And here are some exciting discussions, which would be great to get a chance to talk to you about. One thing I found very interesting when analyzing these discourses was the tension between these two opposing feminist movements. On the one hand, there's been a feminist struggle against gender violence and a camp for taking the experience of survivors seriously, giving them space away from violent men and so forth. But on the other hand, we see the impact of feminist movements in this camp for active fathers and equal responsibility. So there's a certain tension in views and discourses when it comes to gender equality and fathers, which is very interesting to talk about a bit further. And it's interesting to look closer at the thin line that the custody dispute in the media coverage and the monstrous portrays of men that have been violent brings mothers, between either being this hindering mother or mother in Icelandic, and therefore almost even a more monster than the men that have been violent, or a good mother that protects her children from violent fathers. There doesn't seem to be a lot of gray zones there in the media. And the monstrous men then, the monstrous violent men, which is like an impossible identity for men that have been violent against an intimate partner, which is the next step in this research, interviewing men or fathers that have been violent in intimate partner relationships. A terrible choice for children, I put as a headline there in quotation marks, because it is, of course, not a choice for children which parents they have. So a monstrous manifestation in the media of fathers that have been violent diminishes the complex and nuanced emotions that children can have for their fathers. And this is a discussion we need to have as well, and that the media certainly does not seem to portray. Yeah, thank you.